Two iconic MacBooks, both powered by Apple's latest M3 chip. One big question: which one really delivers? On the left, meet the MacBook Air M3. Sleek, silent, and surprisingly powerful. And on the right, the MacBook Pro M3. Pro display meets professional performance. Let's skip the buzzwords and get to the real stuff. Each category earns direct points, and at the end, you'll see exactly who comes out on top. The result might not be what you expect. All right, here's our little battle blueprint for today. We're looking at price, display, performance, battery life, design and portability, and finally, best for. Yeah, it's a lot, but I promise it'll make choosing way easier. All right, let's kick it off with probably the biggest deciding factor for most people: price. So the MacBook Air M3, man, it starts at around $1,099 for a fresh new Apple laptop in 2025. Kind of wild, right? It's the best bang for your buck for most folks. You get 256 gigabytes base storage, and honestly, it's totally enough for students, writers, just day-to-day stuff. Now, the Pro, it starts at $1,599. That's a full $500 more, but you do get 512 gigabytes storage out of the box, which is very nice. If you're thinking long-term, yeah, the investment is solid, but still, $500? Oof. Anyway, most users are going to find the Air way friendlier for their wallet. Winner here? Definitely the Air. Onto the display. So the Air is fine for everyday stuff. You're getting 500 nits brightness, true tone, and a decent color range. But it's an LCD. No ProMotion. So it's just, normal laptop vibes. Now, the MacBook Pro. Oh, and here's something cool. It has that insane mini LED liquid retina XDR screen. We're talking 1600 nits peak brightness. 120 Hz ProMotion for ultra-smooth scrolling, way deeper blacks, and just vivid colors all around. Honestly, for pro editing or binging HDR content, this is overkill in the best way possible. But yeah, if you're mostly browsing or typing, you might never notice. Still, the Pro totally flexes here. So that's our winner for display. Performance time. Both rock the same M3 chip, so the Air actually holds its own on stuff like 4K video editing or big spreadsheets. In fact, weirdly enough, it beats the M3 Pro in some export tests, especially if you snag one with 16 gigabytes RAM. But here's the quirk. The Air is fanless, which, totally silent, but can get a bit throttled if you're really pushing it. The base Air comes with an 8-core GPU, so heavier creative stuff can slow down. Now, the Pro? This thing means business. Active cooling, so no thermal throttling. Every model gets a 10-core GPU, and you can kit it out with up to 128 gigabytes RAM. That's wild, right? Only con is the fans, which do get a bit noisy when you're cooking it. Still, Pro takes the crown for pure, relentless performance. Okay, pause for this. Did you know the M3 MacBook Air is completely fanless, and yet it can still handle 4K video edits? Imagine cranking out a YouTube vlog without that noisy whir. That's pretty nuts, right? Battery life, super important if you're always unplugged. So the Air gives you somewhere from 15 to 18 hours. That's already full workday plus Netflix binge territory. Plus, because it's fanless, it's way more efficient, actually. Downside, it's a teensy bit less than the Pro's rated life, especially if you're doing heavy stuff. But the Pro comes in swinging with, get this, 22 hours on a single charge. That's actually the longest of any MacBook right now. Even cranking out video edits, it still lasts longer. The trade-off is that the bigger battery adds a bit of heft, but if you care about sheer juice, Pro wins hands down. All right, design and portability. Everyone's favorite Apple topic. The Air? Ultra thin. Seriously, less than half an inch. And it's light. Depending on your screen size, you're rocking just 2.7 to 3.3 pounds. And no fans, so totally silent. Plus, you get both 13-inch and 15-inch options. Downsides, though, it's missing some Pro ports. Only has 2 Thunderbolt jacks, and no SD slot. Now, the Pro, beautifully built, feels expensive, and you do get killer speakers and mics. It's loaded with HDMI, SD slot, and 3 Thunderbolts. But here's the catch. It's noticeably thicker and tips the scale a bit heavier. So if you want grab-and-go portability, honestly, the Air's got this. Winner? Yep, the Air nabs it. Who's each best for, though? The Air is just perfect for students, everyday users, travelers, pretty much anyone who just wants a solid laptop for web, work, movies. Even budget-minded creators can do a lot on it. Not super ideal for pro video stuff, but maybe that's not you. The Pro shines for real pro editors, color geeks, anyone who needs top-tier HDR or demands the best possible screen. Also, if you're constantly pushing your machine hard, it's obviously the better fit. But you know what? For actual day-to-day people, honestly, It's a tie because it just depends on your needs. So let's zoom out and look at the big picture. When you stack them up side by side, price, portability, performance, display, the MacBook Air M3 is kind of unbeatable for most folks. The Pro has those crazy highlights for hardcore users, especially on display and battery, but you really have to need it. All right, real talk. The Air M3 is seriously the sweet spot for like 90% of people. You get crazy good performance, it's light, fits in any bag, and honestly, for $500 less, hard to argue. If you're a creative or you really need that wild HDR display or maxed out performance, sure, go Pro. But for everyday life, Air all the way. Still stuck on which to pick? Think about what you'll actually use the laptop for. The Air might surprise you with how much it can do, even if you're used to the Pro name. Don't fall for specs hype. Pick what fits your work.